Welcome back to Logistics Remix. Today's episode is all about understanding the speed between click and delivery and why brands need to pay attention to the steps in between. Our guest today is Jacob Sweetwood, the director of Outbound at Spreetail. Let's set the stage with a quick intro. Spreetail is the complete e-commerce solution for in-demand brands and manufacturers of big and bulky products. Jacob is a logistics and transportation executive with over a decade of experience leading high-impact initiatives across e-commerce supply chains. At Spreetail, he oversees over $150 million in transportation spend, managing strategic carrier partnerships, contract negotiations, and performance optimization. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Me too. I think it's going to be a good one. Let's have some fun. I think it'd be great to start with just your current role. And maybe can you tell us a bit about Spreetail and just your work there?
Yeah, absolutely. I first want to talk about Spreetail and kind of what we do. Some people just they see the name and they just don't really understand, what we provide. So we are the number one accelerator of oversized products for e-commerce platforms. So we are number one in that space. I don't think I'm biased, right? But I don't think anyone does it as fast, as efficient, as cost effective as Spreetail. So ultimately, if you're a brand out there, please listen into the episode today because I'm going to give you some insights and ultimately try to sell you on why Spreetail can help you tremendously in the current e-commerce parcel environment that we live in. So a little bit about Spreetail. So ultimately, I'm going to hit this at the very high levels. And of course, we can go into more detail if need be, but what we're going to do here at Spreetail is we're going to partner with you and get your listings live on over 12 marketplaces and channels out there. But first, really what we're going to do is work with you and make sure that we can place a PO for some of your products or, whatever widget you have out there that you're selling, right? And get those, offer you a PO, buy those at wholesale costs and get those inside of our 7 FCs and then start to fulfill that product for you while getting it listed with A+ content on, like I said, over 12 marketplaces in the e-commerce space, with the big ones, the obvious ones being Amazon, Target, Walmart, etc. And then ultimately is where I come in is price is always going to be out there. The price wars that are happening out there on a daily basis in the e-commerce space. But one thing that's often overlooked that Timur and myself are going to talk more about today is speed and what that means in the algorithm. And that's really where I come in, because ultimately we're obsessed with speed at Spreetail and providing that benefit to our brands, passing that on to our brands. So brands that might have a warehouse, let's say in Kansas City, Kansas, right? And they only have one warehouse and they're only able to ship out of one warehouse and they can cover a small percentage of the country and next day that 2-day shipping. They're never going to be eligible for Prime on Amazon. It's just not possible. You have to cover the US population in 1 to 2 days, 99% of it. And it's a high bar, that you have to climb there. And Spreetail has been able to climb it. We've been doing it. It's table stakes for us at this point. So, but it's taken us a long time to get there and a lot of work, sweat equity to get to the speeds that we have today, which are 83% next day coverage to the US population as it currently sits. And we obviously pass that on to the brands that partner with us, but you literally go from a small percentage of the population seeing your listing at a 1 to 2 day on, let's say, Amazon. If you partner with Spreetail, you're going to have that 1 to 2 day promise across the entire US. So you can see the lift that you're potentially going to see in that algorithm. That listing is going to go from maybe page 60 to page 1, right? And immediately if you're partnering with Spreetail. So that's what we provide at a high level. I, of course, focus more on the supply chain side of things. We have a best-in-class fulfillment network and best-in-class fulfillment leadership that really do a nice job inside of our FCs, inbounding and outbounding. It's literally best in class. We fulfill same day. We ship same day. So, and then that's how we achieve the next day, the 2-day promises. And then even if you're a brand with I have a bunch of LTL type products that don't fit the small parcel space. We cover LTL too. And we even have LTL products on some small parcel expedited shipping because we are so good and fast at LTL shipping. we're on average, 2 to 4 days for delivery. And if you know the LTL market, that's literally best in class. It's hard to get better than that. So, we've spent a lot of, like I said, a lot of sweat equity in building out our small parcel and LTL networks with some really close relationships with the carriers that we have that have really come to the table for us in a variety of ways. So again, I think that kind of sums up Spreetail. For me, where I fit in this, being the director of Outbound, is I'm really responsible for speed, cost, and on-time delivery. Those are the three pillars I really focus myself and my team around. We're always driving at those three main KPIs. There's a dichotomy between the three of them, right? If you get too much on one KPI, such as speed, your OTD might suffer. So it's a constant balancing act between all three of those. And I think that's what I love most about the position, about the challenge, about being in this niche market is it's constantly evolving, and you're always having to tweak something here, tweak something there to make sure all three of those KPIs are coming in line, for Spreetail as a whole. But really, that's my responsibility here at Spreetail, is those three main KPIs, and balancing the carrier relationships, of course, working through RFPs that come up, or working through those processes that, are very analyst heavy. My background was in accounting, so that's helped me in those RFP situations. And then really keeping the team focused on just giving the customer the best experience we can, because ultimately, yes, it's Spreetail delivering that product, but ultimately it's we want that great representation for the brands from a customer experience perspective.
That's fantastic. Hey, thank you for that introduction. Sounds like you've built quite a network and are really helping your customers, reach a larger audience, gain more business by shipping faster and being more visible. What really stood out to me is the 3% metric for next day capability, for next day delivery capability. I know when we order on Amazon, especially living in Austin, Texas, we're seeing a lot more items that are shipping and delivering next day. So it's no longer just about 2-day prime. We're seeing a lot of next day shipping. Speaking of, I think I read something recently about Spreetail's push into same day delivery and also cold chain shipping. So can you speak to what drove the decision to get into those two offerings and how things are going there?
Yeah, really. Ultimately, both exciting, I would say cutting edge, opportunities for Spreetail. We always are looking to, one of our key mantras internally is always raise your bar, right? And so we always want to be raising the bar, either into diversifying ourselves into something a little different, setting ourselves apart from maybe some of our competition, or otherwise we're always trying to raise the bar in speed. And we really see same day as, it had all of this energy behind it, I would say probably a year and a half ago. And it seemed like it kind of died out a little bit. And but we really see this opportunity for same day to really make a push back. And we're starting to see that happen with multiple stakeholders out there, whether it be an Amazon, or Walmart, or Target. Like, people are starting to talk about same day again. So, and we've been testing things behind the scenes with same day for a long period of time. We just really haven't advertised it out there. But we really think this is a time where we can either partner with somebody or continue to build it internally, where we take same day to the next level, because we see same day, like there's going to be a need for it, and there's starting to be another need for it. And really what kind of drove that as well is, like you said, our push into cold chain. The perishable shipping is just a totally different animal, if you will. I'm super proud of the way that Spreetail has come together in a short amount of time to put forth a best-in-class cold chain, a supply chain. It's been pretty amazing to watch. We've kind of done it behind the scenes and worked on it in secret. And then we've recently launched some massive shipping with Omaha Steaks. So kind of cool to see the Nebraska ties as well. Spreetail is headquarters in Lincoln. Omaha Steaks is obviously Omaha. So we got that Nebraska Midwest tie. It's beef in Nebraska, which is pretty cool that, we're shipping that and making it happen with 1-2 day delivery promises, which is super exciting. And we've done a good job at it. Well, we're learning every day, right? There's new things, right? Just from like condensation on cold packages via that brown box. It's those type of learnings that we've reacted quickly and solved those, which again, super proud of the team. Our FC leadership is best in class. And then our supply chain operations teams have just really rallied around the flag to make this successful. So it's been super exciting to watch, but just pivoting that back to same day is ultimately we see a space where Spreetail is facilitating, the same day perishable deliveries to customers. We do see a market for that. Whether we want to work together with one of these gig economy carriers that can come by and deliver something same day to your house, pull up to our FC, get loaded, and then go deliver that product. That's what we're really looking at now. And we've got some upcoming pilot tests that we're super excited about. That we think could lead to some exciting developments here in Q3, Q4.
That's awesome. Delivering in the cold chain is a whole different ball game. You're not just worried about transit times, but you're also worried about, like you said, the temperature, right? So shipping down here in Texas in December is not a big issue. You need a certain amount of insulation, a certain amount of ice. But then once you start shipping in Texas in June and July, it's a whole different ball game. And so you have your fluctuations there. So there's a lot more to figure out there. That's awesome. Can't wait to hear more about those initiatives. I want to start diving into kind of the main topic today, and that is click to delivery speed. But before we dive into that, can you just help define click to delivery speed for us? And like, what is it? Why does it matter more now than, say, 5 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So click to delivery is everything. It's one of our main KPIs. We track it daily down to the hour, down to the minute because of what it means, right, for conversion. But just to back up real quick and just maybe define it very simplistically is ultimately it's the speed the customer sees on a marketplace or channel. That's what we're measuring from a click to delivery standpoint is what is being surfaced to that customer on that marketplace. Is it 1 day? Is it 2 days? Is it 2 day plus? Is it 3 days? Is it more? Right. And ultimately, this wasn't a focus really, I think, 3 to 4 years ago. It was really kind of an unknown, right? Until Amazon and other marketplaces started really dialing up the algorithm on speed and that customer experience for e-commerce. And really, as we know, COVID changed the game, right? People, navigated to online marketplaces, just given the circumstances. And then it's like the game got upped again of, ultimately how fast and convenient can you make that delivery for that customer, where if they forgot something for a birthday party or a gift or even I need to get some dirt, sand, how fast we can get that to their home, have it be delightful and have them be delighted as a customer. So like I said, it's what they see on that marketplace. Now, the challenge that we've seen and really have dove headfirst into is what the marketplace is showing to the customer via what our actual performance is. So we have two measures, really. We're looking at what the marketplace is showing for those listings. And then we're also looking at what our actual performance is for those listings. And then we're trying to compare the two and really break down like, okay, why is this showing a slower delivery time than what we're actually delivering, for example, into Austin. So, and then really understand, is this an in-stock problem? Is this just a transmission error for a listing? Are APIs airing out? You start going down all of those potential air spots when we do this comparison. And again, like an Amazon instance, like Amazon will refer to these as glance views in some of their higher tier programs, such as a seller fulfilled prime or premium programs that you have to qualify for as a shipper. We're enrolled in all of those, but ultimately is what they refer to them as glance views. And you have to hit certain metrics for speed in their programs. You have a 3-strike protocol. So again, this is just another reason of why we track it so closely and make sure that we're always in line with those glance views. And also we want to understand is a glance view is defined of how many people look at our listing and it shows a 1 day or it shows a 2 day, right? And they're just going to the page. And we want to see that as well, because that's going to impact our conversion data, for that buy box. Is ultimately we want to see that 1 day glance view or listing get a lot of glance views, right? And so we're tracking it week to week. And then we're trying to understand the leading indicators that are either driving it higher or driving it lower, and really deep dive those, and they can be outside factors too, like weather. We've had some weather oddities. It seems like this summer it's been a little colder than in the past. And we've seen that kind of drive our traffic down a little bit from a C2D perspective. But then also now, like a week like this week, where it's 100 in Nebraska here, we're seeing, our glance views and our listing kind of take off. So we're always tracking those things, whether it be internal factors, external factors. But we're always looking at, what is our speed on the marketplaces be our actual performance.
Yeah, and there's no shortage of KPIs to track, and I think we'll dive into some of those KPIs here as we continue the conversation. But it does sound like that the faster you can deliver, potentially the more you could sell, and speed is still important. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's obvious, like in every marketplace today, the algorithm is heavily weighted. Yes, price is always going to be top, but it is heavily weighted to ultimately speed, and how fast that product can get to that customer. So again, we've done A/B testing, all of those things. And I can tell you, and most people know this today, is that a day faster will get you about 15 to 20% lift on that listing, table stakes. So again, we've done those tests. A lot of people have too. And it's a massive lift when you can get just even 1 day faster than what you're currently shipping.
Absolutely. That's a big number. Let's give a real world example here, or maybe a pretend example. Because I think it'd be good to hear kind of what are the different steps in between that click, which is the checkout, right? Someone's buying the item, to getting it delivered to my door. And since you guys are in the big and bulky, let's pretend I'm ordering a basketball hoop online from my kids, and you're shipping that out. So can you walk us through the steps in between of that journey and that process, and what are you tracking? What do you recommend others should be tracking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to back up a little bit, and it starts so early in the process to be able to successfully execute this. And we have A-class teams here from an inventory perspective that really start the journey on a successful note for our brands. And it's really the journey for me, in my mind, really starts at just making sure you have good inventory and good inventory coverage, right? To make sure that you're not shipping out of zone, paying extra costs that you should be, and you have the best opportunity to get that product, to that customer in the nearest FC, right? So for us, like we have a FC in DFW, to get it to Timur's house, we would obviously want it in stocked in DFW. We really wouldn't want to ship it from our FC in Las Vegas or our FC in Lincoln, Nebraska. So we're really maniacally focused with brands on making sure they have good in-stock rates, and we're working with our inbound transportation team to make sure that we're balancing the network as well. Like if we're selling SKU X like hotcakes out of AVP, we're going to transfer some volume up there just to balance the network, right? And then from there, it's really our software team taking over and being successful to make sure that that product is listed correctly and showing, we're feeding that API to Amazon that, hey, we're in stock in DFW and we're ready to go. And you should show a 1-day promise because we have this in stock in DFW, right? So, and then making sure that's advertised to the customer. So customer A gets on, Amazon, Target, Walmart sees that 1-day promise, that listing should flash right in front of him. Most customers don't go to the next page even. So we want to make sure that we own the buy box and we've got that listing. We're number one. We track that as well. And so ultimately it flashes, right? And it comes up, it's a great price, from Spreetail, and the fine print, it will say fulfilled from Spreetail. And then ultimately you're going to see that crazy fast promise. You're also going to see the Prime badge, which is, we have to qualify to be in that program weekly with very stringent requirements there, from speed to on-time delivery. And you'll see that Prime badge, and that should give you a lot of comfort to say, hey, one, this is a protected item. This isn't a fake seller. Like, this is a legit seller. that's very reputable, and you can see our reviews, of course, on Amazon. That's our, and how much business we've done. That Spreetail, you should see that name. It should give you quite a bit of comfort as a customer, along with that Prime badge. And then ultimately, when you go to check out, it's going to register that speed. You're going to check out, and then that sale is going to flow into our order processing system, where our software is going to take over, our TMS, if you will. We're going to, one of the things I'm probably most proud of with my time here at Spreetail is helping develop our dynamic sorting within our TMS. So there's going to be an opportunity where it's really going to look at the local Dallas sort. It's going to look at our line haul that goes down to Houston, and that's a direct inject. So we'll bypass the DFW hub and we'll go straight to Houston. And the reason we do that with those bypasses, and we run over 14 of these across our entire network, that's how we get the speed that we do, is one, we want to limit touches from a damage perspective to make sure that product gets to the customer in a very nice, condition with defect free. And also it's going to help us, we can shave days off in what some call zone jumping, where we'll just shave a complete day off by going on a line haul that maybe cuts a little early in the day. So our software is going to look and say, hey, what's the best decision here? And it's going to pick, in that instance, it's probably going to pick that line haul to get it to Timur's house a little faster. So he's going to see this super fast promise, and it's going to go, and it's going to be direct, and he's going to see a scan on that product that night on his FedEx app to give him that peace of mind that, wow, it's already in the hub. One thing my team is maniacally focused on is I have 24/7 coverage. That's one thing I instituted when I took over the role, was that, as you know, logistics is not a 8 to 5 game. It's a 24/7 game. So we need to get coverage after hours to track trailers, track and trace, do all those type of things to make sure, again, that customer is having the best experience they possibly can when they buy from Spreetail. And then ultimately that product's going to show up at your house, defect free. You'll be like, wow, this is a very awkward box. How did they get it there that fast? But that's what Spreetail does best. And ultimately, I will say, like, the culture of Spreetail is, pushing down those barriers, like big and bulky. People, there's a lot of naysayers out there that always said you cannot get over, when I first got here, 60% next day, right? We're at 83% with big and bulky packages. It's just, ultimately thinking a little differently, being nimble, being flexible, being gritty, and finding kind of those out of the norm solutions like direct injects to really make it happen. So super exciting. One other thing I'll just stop on is like, if you were to order that product maybe later in the day, like a 6-7 time frame, we've really worked hard across our network to get later cut times and still make on-time delivery. That's something that's really overlooked. If I'm talking to like a seller out there or somebody who's really exploring, how do I get better glance views and things of that nature? One thing is really pushing for later cut times with your carrier partners. Now that's a delicate dance, right? Because there's critical cuts on their side, and there's different sorts, right? I'm just speaking from my FedEx mind, but there's a twilight sort, there's a midnight sort, there's a sunrise sort. All of those sorts have different critical cuts and different commitments from an OTD perspective that you need to be analyzing on a daily, weekly basis, because they always change, right? And those can affect your on-time delivery metrics accordingly. So you really need to work with your partner on pushing them. Maybe pushing is not the right word, but working with them to push back those critical cut times, because the longer you can show a 1 or 2 day promise to a zip code, the more glance feeds you're going to get, the more conversion you're going to get. And we've really pushed hard the last year or two to push ours as low as they possibly can go, or late, if you will.
That's awesome. And I think you stress a really important point, is having the right partners in place that will work with you, that will understand your goals. And you understanding their operation too is really critical to this, to not only achieve faster speed, but also it sounds like you guys are getting really creative. I mean, there's talk about zone skipping, zone jumping. Here's an opportunity to use a later cut time. Here's an opportunity to use a zone skip. It sounds like you're not just using a cookie cutter solution for delivery. You're really getting creative and really not taking status quo as the way things are just going to go. I think that's really important. I think that's really good for the audience to hear is hey, just because you're in a certain situation today doesn't mean that you couldn't find those creative solutions that sounds like you guys have implemented at Spreetail. But listen, everything you just mentioned is like the perfect world scenario, right? I'd love to get that basketball hoop next day because when my son comes home, he wants to see it. But what we don't want is we don't want an upset kid, and things happen, right? So, breakdowns is what I want to go next. What I wanted to ask you is, when breakdowns happen, I wanted to kind of understand where do you typically see them happen? Where are you seeing these bottlenecks and breakdowns in that click to delivery experience? Is it the line haul? Is it dynamic? Those transit times changing? Tell me about what you're seeing are kind of the common challenges in those bottlenecks.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, what I described is what I would call happy path, right? But, this industry, there can be a lot of non-happy paths. And we really pride ourselves here at Spreetail at being problem solvers, right? And ultimately, you're going to have problems on the supply chain side. Things are going to happen outside your control, inside your control. And it's really how do you respond, right? To make it right with the customer, get it fixed. And really where that starts for us is KPI tracking. We're obsessed with it here at Spreetail. We do things called left to right reporting, where we'll put together whole tracks of KPIs on like a T6, lagging by week, just to see that trend. And then of course, we always want to put it up against the goal so we know how we're doing, right? I like to code things red and green. It makes it simple. I pass the greens. There's no need to talk about something that's going good. What's happening with the reds, right? And what are we doing to fix it? What's the action plan? Who owns the action plan? Things of that nature. So, and really what areas that we are common trouble spots, right, for us and others, right? These are common. I've been in different companies. I know what supply chain is, and these are just trouble spots that always need focus. And one of those spots is making sure your software and your zip files is always up to date. Ultimately, APIs are always the way to go. The more you can automate and really strengthen and harden your software code, the better off you're going to be. Flat files can expire very quickly. When you're uploading a Excel file, if you will, with transits to, we do everything in small parcel at the zip code level, right? OD pairs. And ultimately those flat files can get expired. And then, no one's happy, right? So we thought it was supposed to get there in Y. Carrier says, no, it was X, and marketplace isn't happy, customer's not happy, and we might have to refund that order. So that absolutely can't happen. So that's just a typical trouble spot I've seen, in my journey. Another piece more like operations focused is always that handoff between FC and carrier is always a delicate dance, if you will. And ultimately, making sure that your carriers are working well with your FC and everyone's aligned. And that's easier said than done, right? There's always going to be naturally, whatever company you work for, there's going to be naturally a little friction between fulfillment and transportation. And it's really how do we work together? How do we be one team and really come together and make sure everyone's aligned, everyone's happy with the carrier providers that are coming out of that FC, the carrier's happy with the FC, the load quality, things of that nature. You really need to make sure that partnership is strong, and really like face-to-face meetings and things of that nature can really help that, right? Kind of build those relationships, make sure everyone, like I said, is happy and working together. There's nothing worse than a bad relationship between an FC and a carrier partner, right? It's just things are going to go south. There's going to be defects, and everyone's going to point fingers, right? And that's what we absolutely cannot have happen. So we've really made it a passion project, myself included, of making sure we have a healthy dynamic, what we like to call one team, between our FCs and our transportation folks to really come together and make sure we're all driving towards the same goal, and that's on-time delivery, a delighted customer at the end of the day. So ultimately, that's the goal, but that is a trouble spot, no matter where you go. And then also along those same lines is sortation is so important, right? When we're on a daily basis out of one FC, Spreetail is sending 30 trailers, and they're all going to different directions, different hubs, right? And unfortunately, if a package that was supposed to go south gets on the line haul that's going north, it's never going to make on-time delivery. So that's another area where we're maniacally focused, what we call sortation accuracy, where any defects that happen, we're deep diving those defects and saying, hey, what happened? Was this human error? Did a team member make a mistake? And then we're also, which I think is really cool, we're trying to develop some software internally to make sure that, if they're scanning that product to that trailer, there's going to be like a blocker saying, hey, wrong trailer, try again somewhere else, on the correct trailer. So that's in the works right now for us. It's just like, how do we poke a yoke is the term, right? Of just literally making it airproof. So again, that's another area that we've, that can be challenging at times if you don't have the focus on it. And then of course, finally, it's just making sure your label integrity is really solid. When you're Spreetail and you're shipping out over 50,000 labels a day, those zebra printers can get real tired real fast. So making sure that we're doing label maintenance regularly, looking at your relabel rates with your carrier partners and the defect patterns to make sure that, hey, if we need to jump and get an ink cartridge switched out, I mean, it's a very simple thing, but I'm telling you, it can turn your day upside down. If your labels aren't printing correctly or your barcodes are messed up. So that's just a couple areas that, come to mind quickly of some trouble spots that I've seen shippers and carriers get into.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And some of the things that you mentioned really resonate, especially building strong relationships with the local operations folks between the FC and the carrier. Once those relationships are established, they're the ones that are going to communicate the most. And so having them work closely together to work through any issues, I think critical. So that's really important. I think I would stress for anyone to develop stronger relationships with their partners, have those local operations teams meet each other, build strong relationships, have a line of communication. Maybe it's not just one person, but a distribution, right? Multiple people, I think is extremely critical. One person may be off that day and you may just need to reach the team. And so having those lines open, I think is really important to get through some of these challenges. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It sounds like to me that not only have you identified the issues that could come up, but you're maniacal, and I'm using the word maniacal about watching over them and tracking them and then fixing them and going down to the root cause, which then fixes kind of the issue for the long haul. In terms of other parts of the process, I want to kind of pick your brain on where you think the most often overlooked, or like what parts of the process are the most often overlooked, or challenges that customers run into when they're making that promise to their customer of, hey, we're going to have a next day delivery, or we're going to have a 2-day delivery for you, versus the actual speed. Speed doesn't mean it's always going to get there. It's just the speed that's set by the delivery provider. There's also the performance of that delivery. So what do you think are the most overlooked areas? And it sounds like you've had a lot of experience going through this. So curious to pick your brain on those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So just learning from experience and understanding maybe where there's some pitfalls out there that people overlook, which I believe you're getting at, is from a speed standpoint, is the first thing I think about when you raised this question to me was the templates within the marketplaces and the channels, right? Is ultimately it's great if you are 83% next day coverage, like Spreetail from a population standpoint, but if your templates aren't correct and they're not showing that, or basically set up properly, you're not going to be showing that to the customer. And all this work you've done and put in and continue to be put in, you're not going to get the fruits of your labor, right? So this is one area that I've seen through trial and tribulation is really in where we put a lot of focus in, is on the templates. Different channels, marketplaces have different names for them, but ultimately they all need to understand what are your capabilities, what are your nodes, where are your FCs at, what are your inventory nodes, like where are they located, right? And then, there's a lot of ways that they can calculate their promises. A lot of them do it automatically because they have carrier relationships and they want to do it automatically, which is great. And they'll calculate that speed from your nodes if you set them up properly to that final customer. But you also have to tell them what carriers you're using, right? And at which FCs, What are your cut times? You have to be maniacally, I think that's our word of the day, but dialed into these templates in all seriousness, or else you're going to show a promise that you don't want to show, and your on-time delivery is going to suffer as a result. Or you're just going to be so conservative that you're really not getting any lift in your buy box or your conversion in sales because you're not showing what you're truly capable of. So it's this very delicate dance in those shipping templates. And I recommend peer reviews. I recommend 2, 3, 4 pairs of eyes and having experts in your company that are dialed in to these templates and the settings and what they mean. Setting up time with the SMEs, subject matter experts on the marketplace channel side, developing those relationships to really understand, what new capabilities are they rolling out? What are they focused on? Giving them feedback is really important as a seller too, of just like, hey, I don't think the weekends are quite showing the promise that we think it should be, right? Weekends again is another area where they're hard. It's small parcel. Everyone does a little different. Some of the regionals deliver every single day. Some of the nationals say, I'm not delivering until Tuesday if you give it to me on Saturday, right? So that's a thing where it's that delicate balance, right? And there's so many variables going into it. On top of that, you add holidays and things of that nature, and you have to be absolutely dialed in on holidays, or else you're going to have a really bad on-time delivery week, and then no one's going to be happy in that scenario. Also building your models for data on capturing what the channel is promising via what you're capable of doing, and the carrier has stated, clearly, hey, that we're going to push an extra transit day in for our entire network because of July 4th, right? On this upcoming holiday, they're going to move their transits around, and that marketplace channel, you as a seller need to help them understand that, hey, you need to adjust on your end as well, or we're going to run a 60% on-time delivery, for you guys. And then no one's happy. The customer got advertised a promise that the carrier couldn't commit, and no one is going to be happy in that scenario. So it's really important to provide feedback. Make sure you develop relationships. We just talked about relationships. We have a lot of great relationships out there, and there's some folks in some of the big channels that I really respect and admire, that they are trying to they want to get better, right? They want to show the accurate promise. They want to do things the right way, if you will. And it's important that we continue to work together to make this the best possible customer experience it can be, because that's what everyone should be focused on in this industry, is giving that delighted customer experience. But really, shipping templates is absolutely huge. Another piece of this is, like I said earlier, is cut times, line hauls, making sure you don't always stick yourself into a box on these marketplace and channels. Think of creative ways outside the box to really advertise, maybe some special things that you're doing, right? Or if you're working with a regional carrier, right, that maybe has faster transit times and effects, make sure you're getting credit for that, as best you can. And if you're not, continue to, escalate, communicate, try to get that credit, right? Because you're spending this money to move that package from A to B in a fast manner, and you want that credit on that marketplace or channel. So again, that's really what comes to mind, is just being really in tune with what your advertising, your capabilities are to those marketplace and channels, and just make sure you're getting credit for the great things you're doing, as a shipper out there.
All right. I think we're getting some great golden nuggets, some great insights. This is awesome. Really appreciate you sharing that. I think one thing that really stood out to me is also providing feedback. When you have great partners, it's not only about improving your operation, but giving them feedback on how they can improve their operation or how you can work together better. And I think that's really important. Don't just assume hey, this is the way things go. I think they want to hear from you. A lot of times people don't,
Absolutely.
they don't get feedback. I look at feedback as a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Feedback, constructive feedback is a gift, and ultimately I would just implore anyone who's listening to this that, that sells on a channel or a marketplace, if there's things that we need to work together collectively as sellers to push forward, and on many of the major marketplaces too, is just pushing forward to make sure that we're getting that credit for what we're doing, right? And ultimately yes, some of those marketplaces have maybe a 1P type operation, but like we as the seller need to get the same type of credit, right? For the speed that we're delivering on a weekly basis, for the customer, and make sure that's advertised. So it's sometimes there are these moments where we need to band together and really continue to push that feedback. And in another place, really, I think, like if I can segue for a moment into what do we need to continue to push for is really thinking about transits, not from a regional level on the templates, but really like, this, everything in our industry is done at the OD pair, origin destination, at the zip code level. Like we got to get down to the zip code level. Like these blanket promises from like a state level or like a regional level. I mean, you and I both know it doesn't work like that, right? It is a zip file, and you could be in, South Texas is big, like, West Texas is big. There's a lot of, there's some zone 2s in there, there's some zone 3s, there's some 2 days, there's some 1 days. Like you can't just call it 1 day, right? You can't call the state of Texas 1 day. Like it doesn't work like that. So, like that granularity has to be there. And we need to continue to push for that for sellers. And then also like you and I both know that depending on the time of day a package is injected, that transit time can change. I talked about critical cuts a little earlier in the episode. And, those critical cuts can change depending on when that package is injected time of day, right? It's just geography. If it gets injected at 10 a.m., I can make that 4-hour transit to Charlotte, North Carolina from Savannah, no problem. It's going to be a 1 day, right? Late at night, cutting that trailer for my late night cuts and it gets to Charlotte, it's going to be a 2 day. And like those dynamic transits, I think that's probably like the fourth wall for us to bring down is like, seeing that transit change midday from when it's like a twilight sort via midnight sort via sunrise sort, right? And like tracking that rather than it being like static, like this has to be a 1 day, it's going to change. Another great example of this is like from Georgia down to South Florida, right? To Miami, South Beach. For a lot of carriers, that's a 1 day during the day. But as you get later in the day, it turns into a 2 day run because, you just get later and you can't make those critical cuts. So ultimately, and when I say critical cuts, that's ultimately us getting it injecting into a hub. But those hubs have numerous trucks that are leaving, at specified times of the day, where truck A that leaves earlier is going to make that 1 day promise, but truck B is late at night and it turns into a 2 day. So like understanding those sorts and critical cut times and having that flow into the templates and showing that to the customer of, hey, you got on there and ordered at 10 a.m., that's going to be a 1 day. If you get on there at 8 p.m. at night, it's going to be a 2 day, right? And there is some of that functionality out there, but it can just continue to be improved.
Totally. I think those always get me whenever I'm shopping for an item and I want it to deliver fast. If it's showing me a cutoff time, if it says, hey, order in the next 30 minutes and get it tomorrow. If you order after that, you get it in 2 days. I'm more likely to buy in that next 30 minutes because I know I want that item as quick as possible. And man, I think we can keep going on and on. I mean, right? And I know I only have you for
too long, my friend. It's been too long.
Yeah. I only have you exactly, and I'm enjoying talking to you about this. And I think we can talk for hours. And I only have you for a certain amount of time. So maybe I could just ask you one more thing. If a brand wants to get faster, where do you recommend they start? Like, what's the first step?
Yeah, I'm going to be biased here, but obviously I would recommend any brand just really researching Spreetail and giving Spreetail a shot, or at least even just setting up a phone call, right, to walk through our pitch deck. And there's Spreetail.com that I would direct people to and brands to just to take a look. You can see that, and you've heard me talk today about how dialed in we are on these things and how much expertise we have in-house. Our executive team is second to none in what we're driving. And it's super exciting times to be at Spreetail right now. Josh Ketter has done an excellent job of leading our company to the next level, and he will continue to do that. So it's been exciting to watch that transformation, Josh taking on, wearing that hat of the CEO. So I would implore any brands to, look us up, take a look. But taking a step back, taking my Spreetail hat off for a second is like, it's that old adage, that Greek adage of know thyself, right? Be self-aware of who you are as a brand and what you're trying to achieve. And ultimately with that, I say know thyself because it's what do you want what do you want? You have to understand, okay, what are my strategic goals as a brand? Do I want 1 to 2 day shipping? Do I care about that? I would hope you would, because that's the way things are moving. But maybe you're just satisfied with having your one warehouse and, offering 3 to 4 day delivery. In that sense, that's maybe a path where you take of using maybe the post office or somebody like that. That's going to be, it's just, hey, I just want my stuff picked up and delivered. Okay, great. You're not concerned about speed. But then there's the other avenue of, hey, I want to get faster. I want to be in the mix, in the algorithm, right, on these marketplaces in that 1 to 2 day time frame. Again, we're a turnkey solution at Spreetail where that brand can come to us and immediately get that. But if you're trying to build that, it's a big undertaking. I'm not gonna lie here. It's a CapEx investment. It's working with carriers. You said it yourself. I think the best is like, you need good carrier partners that are going to be willing to work with you on some things, right? And be flexible as you kind of grow your network, and be willing to do direct injects, be willing to sell that stuff internally, right? Because that's easier said than done sometimes, but you're really going to want a good carrier partner that's going to help you build out your network. And then you probably need to look at some forward deployed nodes, maybe partnering with a 3PL or somebody to get your inventory in a couple more spots than maybe just the warehouse where you're at, right? Is look for those opportunities. They're out there. You just got to do some digging and maybe get creative, right? I think another thing we talked about is like, don't put yourself inside the box, right? Think outside of it and get creative. And it's really those two paths for me is like, and again, I'm very high level at this point, but like, know thyself, know strategically where you want to go, then build your roadmap. We're very in tune here at Spreetail at building roadmaps, playbooks, operations playbooks, set where you want to go and then put the steps in place to know where you need to get there and just start ticking those off.
Awesome. Well, if I was just starting out, I definitely want to get on a call with you. Right. I definitely want to pick your brain. Sounds like you're willing, just being here, willing to give information from your experience. And you guys have experienced quite a lot building out the network that you have built out. Well, Jacob, thank you again for joining me here in this conversation and sharing these awesome insights with the audience. Where can listeners learn more about Spreetail or even connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, this has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Just a couple parcel nerds chopping it up, if you will. So exciting stuff. But honestly, go check out Spreetail.com. It's a really innovative website too, where you can go and really get a taste of what's it like being inside our FC. There's some videos on there. There's also, the paths where you can get in touch with some of our business development folks that would really push you towards at least just have a conversation and see if it's a fit for you. So start there on the Spreetail side. For me, you can catch me at LinkedIn, Jacob Sweetwood. Feel free to just shoot me a DM if you have a question. I'll try to get to it when I can. Obviously, it's summer peak for us, so it's a very busy time for us. We're all obviously gearing up like most folks for all of the Prime days, Way days, all the days that are coming our way here. So we're gearing up for that to have a really successful summer peak season. We're in the midst of it already, but we're still gearing up and getting capacity set there. So it's a busy time of year, but I will try to get back to you when I can. But shoot me a DM if you have a question. I'll answer it the best I can. But this has been great. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk through some of these subjects that some of them are super niche that some people don't even know about, right? And again, nothing I've discussed today is proprietary. It's all out there. You just got to look for it, get creative, get outside the box. But again, thank you again for the opportunity to be here today.
Awesome. Jacob, thank you for joining me again on the show today. I'd love for everyone, if you haven't subscribed to with the Logistics Remix channel on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. You'll get plenty of insights from people like Jacob and others that we're excited to share with you. And Jacob, thanks again. Have a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. So subscribe and like. Take care.
Awesome. See ya.